Okay, I am back. As I said, I was away for a couple of days attending my little niece's housewarming in Bengaluru. And I traveled, so I have to offset that now. And I had a bit of a debate with some guy commenting on my postings on LinkedIn, calling me hypocritical because I didn't answer his question about what I'm doing with single-use plastic in my home. Asking individuals such questions may sound like a very great way to save the world, but I focus on large scale issues, and I have posted in my short video introduction. My life is consistent with my message in terms of tracking a carbon footprint. Tunnel vision on single issues can lead you into a rabbit hole, and you miss the point of solving the problem from a 360-degree point of view. So you have to be always careful. Plus, I have posted a podcast on the life cycle analysis of plastic versus paper versus cloth, and depending on which question you ask, paper and cloth don't always come out on top. Single-use plastic is bad because it gets trashed and thrown everywhere, not recycled properly, and we are just bad with it. So it is a miracle material, plastic is, but the way we are using it is the problem. So we have to be sure of how we phrase the problem and how we attack individuals versus remembering that we're all in this together. And that's part of the problem of staying on the sustainable development pathways. You have to track everything and not have just one vision on one thing. So let's look at the steps of the logical framework approach to building capacity for resilience that we have been discussing. We talked about 3 steps, 1 step, and 6 steps, 5 steps here, and these we called as So logical framework approach for designing capacity development initiatives consists of 9 steps, 3 focused on current situation, 1 focused on desired situation, and 5 focused on project or program itself. So current situation, desired situation, and the programs and projects. You need to create the desired situation. Being distraught about the present situation can lead to hopelessness, which is not what you want. So analysis of project context, stakeholder analysis, situation analysis, and then objectives analysis to define the desired state, and then you implement it through plan of activities, resource planning, including financial resources, which always turns out to be one of the most critical needs or barriers depending on how it is available or not. Indicators, so you can do monitoring and evaluation to make sure you are on track for resilience to come back to sustainable development. Internal risk analysis and management, and analysis of assumptions. Okay, so whatever you assume as the project evolves and you keep tracking detours from the sustainable development pathway, then you have to keep checking your assumptions whether they are in fact correct and are leading you on the track pathway to sustainable development or not. So let's read each of them. Analysis of project context. When involved in designing a capacity development project or program for resilience, it's essential to start the process by considering and explicitly articulating the general rationale for the initiatives. In short, we must explain why the project or program is necessary in the first place. Being explicit and transparent about the reasons for potential capacity development initiative, as well as for engaging in the process of designing it, it is fundamental for building trust between prospective partners, for mobilizing commitment, and ultimately for the effectiveness of the capacity development project or program as such. The efficiency and effectiveness of the implementation and accomplishment of the goals of the project or the objectives of the project depend on building trust between prospective partners, mobilizing commitment, and ultimately making sure that everybody is on the same page with indicators and so on. Okay, so it's also important to consider already in the initial phase of the design process that the notion of development may mean different things to different people, since what is considered an improvement for one actor may not be considered an improvement for another. So equity and justice and agency and all come in here to make sure that everybody feels like they are being carried along and everybody is getting an improvement out of the situation. Doesn't have to be the same amount of improvement, but nobody should be negatively affected. For example, an international organization may view better capacity to distribute donated clothes to disaster affected communities as development, while women involved in local clothing production may lose their livelihood if their market is flooded with free foreign clothes, and is likely not to view such change as development at all. It is thus essential to explicitly discuss what is to be considered development in the particular project or program, and the analysis of assumptions is important again and again, because situations may arise where new factors indicate that somebody thinks they are not benefiting from this, or that they are not seeing development as a part of this particular outcome. So that's always important. Finally, it's essential to analyze what contextual factors that may have an effect on the project or program, including a broad range of physical, environmental, political, economical, social, and cultural factors. All these things are always part of the overall implementation, planning, designing, and implementation. A common tool for such analysis is called SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and results in the creation of a 2x2 matrix, which we'll see in a minute. The SWOT analysis itself is done with as broad participation of actors as possible, given the common difficulty to influence who will be allowed to participate and logistical constraints of transportation, time and cost, venue size, etc. So this, in the context, in the language of sustaining the commons, is action situation, action arena, biophysical limitations, hierarchies, rules, and so on. However, it's vital to consistently advocate for broad participation of women and men, geographically central and peripheral organizations, ethnic minorities and majorities, etc. So you don't want to make anybody like they were not consulted or not part of the process. Acceptance and success always depend on co-producing these things along these lines. So here is the SWOT index matrix: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you have external and internal factors, and they can be positive and negative. So internal factors, strengths are positive, weaknesses are negative. External factors are opportunities, which are positive, and threats, which are negative. Sounds very intuitive and obvious, but you have to start filling this matrix so that you identify every strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat, so that you have the full risk map and opportunity map in front of you, so that you can also avoid the opportunity costs as such when you make choices. Let's read a bit more. Actual SWOT analysis is then a collective brainstorming exercise in which the group identifies what are the general physical, environmental, political, economical, social, and cultural factors that can affect the prospective capacity development project or program. The result is also likely to include rather specific information that is a valuable input to the coming steps of the logical framework approach. The 4 fields of the SWOT matrix guide the brainstorming session, as they represent 4 different categories of factors: strengths, which are positive and internal; weaknesses, which are negative and internal; opportunities, which are positive and external; and threats, which are negative and external. What is positive and what is negative might be self-explanatory, but internal factors are what the prospective partners have and can influence in the human environment system, while external factors lay outside their normal range of influence. This becomes obvious with many examples. When you think about climate impacts that are remotely imposed, adaptation actions can be internal with threats and opportunities and strengths and weaknesses. So you have to worry about, managing the unavoidable and that are coming from external influences or external drivers. Examples of internal factors are human resources, policies and procedures, network of contacts, and while external factors may include global financial situation, political stability, etc. So here we are talking about capacity building for resilience and not specific hazards. The important aspects of the analysis of the project context are summarized here in box 9.2. Summary of the analysis of project context. Then analysis of project context can be summarized as the answer to three questions. What is the general rationale for the development of capacities for resilience? What different visions of development are considered and how are they reconciled? What are the general physical, environmental, political, economical, social and cultural factors that could affect the project or program? Or you have to have this matrix completely mapped and understood so that you have a full vision of the full clear vision of the path you are setting on for the next steps of this analysis. Okay, so let's leave this here and come back and think about stakeholder analysis next in the next podcast. This one is only about 12 minutes, but it's full of concepts, so make sure you grasp the concepts. And then this book doesn't provide too many case studies, but when we go through the sustaining the commons, you will see, because there are many scale issues here, how you deal with resilience building in a community level versus a town level or a state level or a national level can keep adding scales that make it harder and harder to include stakeholders as we need here in this framework. And you have to decide how you are going to deal with resilience at scales that where these steps are not so obvious. Okay, so we'll come back and do that in the next chapter, but after my lunch. Okay.